Welcome to We Are Endurance webinar series. I'm really excited to have John, and Maggie's going to be joining us soon
Hopefully.
from the Mackinac Island Swim. And John, why don't you kick it off by telling us who you are and also about the swim and, what it entails and all that.
Sure. So my name's John Voss. I live over here in Michigan. Uh, the Mackinac Island Swim was something that got started kind of in 2020 during kind of peak pandemic times. We were supposed to be doing a swim up in the Straits of Mackinac there along the bridge, and we had it had obviously been canceled because of the pandemic, and a bunch of us had kind of already been planning on being up there, and we were talking about still trying to do some swimming, and the obviously, swimming across the straits was probably not the smartest plan. You got a lot of freighters coming through there, a kind of a dangerous thing. And I had said, well, we're all kind of following our pandemic protocol here. Maybe we could just like get a couple of us to go over on the ferry and head over to Mackinac Island and just swim around the island. And ended up being 8 or 9 of us that showed up, and um, one of the guys that swam with us that day, lived on the island. His name Brad Conkey, and uh, after we swam around the island that day, he was like, "Hey, we should make an event out of this," and it's kind of taken off from there. So, uh, y- like I said, it started with a couple of us that just like swimming. We were originally going to swim 4 miles across the straits, and decided, hey, we can do this 8 mile swim around the island. If we can't hack it, we'll hop out and walk the shoreline. And kind of
Talk
from there,
Talk
yeah.
about your background as a
My background, yeah.
yeah, I mean, were you always a distance swimmer?
Distance swimmer, absolutely not. I was a breaststroker. So I swam in high school and in college at Grand Valley University. And breaststroke was my stroke. I was never really good at freestyle, or at least as fast as the other people that I would practice with. And once I was done swimming in college, uh, I had gone a couple years without doing anything, and I got into the whole triathlon thing, which a lot of us do. It looks like Jackie's probably into that. Um, so once I got back into like swimming in open water with the triathlon stuff, I realized, maybe not being the fastest freestyler is a big deal. Maybe just like this open water thing's something that I can get into. And it's really brought my love for the water and swimming kind of back, just being in that open water. I go to the pool every once in a while, but I would much rather just be out in the lake swimming. So.
Absolutely. Well, Maggie, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
So,
sorry.
no, it's okay. So, John was just giving us a little background about himself. Can you give us a little background about yourself and how you got involved in the Mackinac Island Swim?
Yeah, so I started open water swimming more like to do triathlons in, I don't know, 2016 or something. I did the bridge swim. I didn't know John at the time, but I did the bridge swim when it was the Mighty Mac swim in 2019, I guess. And then we were signed up for 2020, and that didn't happen. And then a bunch of us decided to do the crazy thing of just like jumping in and swimming 8.2 around the island. So, and then I've been kind of involved ever since. The next year it became an official event. And then, yeah, and then I've been helping out in increasing ways every year. But it's always just a great event and great community. I do other like long distance events outside of the swim now, do some ultra marathon swimming. So this kind of opened the door for me to do some longer stuff. So
So, tell us a little bit about the Mackinac Island Swim and what makes it unique compared to some of the other open water swims that you've done.
Yeah, so I guess for the Mackinac Island Swim, I feel like the swim community is so great for all the swims that I've done, but I feel like there's something special about the Mackinac Island Swim. Getting to the island, being on the island, it really truly is not a race and just an event. And I feel like that's a huge feeling that you get throughout the experience, is that you're all there to just see the beautiful water and the rocks and everything around the island. You're there to experience it together, whether it's crazy water waves or super calm water and waves and the nice bridge. It's really a community of people that all come together and support each other through whatever distance they're able to do throughout the event. So, like, I was at another swim event this past weekend, and you have your people that are just there for the experience, but you have your competitive people. I was tried to be one of them for this event, but the Mackinac Swim doesn't have any of that, right? Like, you might have some personal goals, whether it be to make it all 8 miles or to just do 2 or 1 in a relay. But it's really just such a good group of people and a nice event to kind of push the boundaries of what you thought you could do.
So this event, I'm on the Mackinac Island group, and a lot of people talk about when you get to the turn, there's this particular turn where it is like wicked water. Could you talk a little bit about, like, take us through the whole entire thing, right? Like, most of the people on this call or who will be listening are from New York or the
Mhm.
surrounding area, Maryland, maybe. Jackie's from Michigan. And how many swimmers participate in this?
So I think we have, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we usually have about 300 to 400 people in total that are at the event, that are doing various levels of the swim, right? So some of that, I think we had about 250, I want to say, do the whole 8.2. And then we had a bunch of relays that, increases numbers, but not all of those people are necessarily in the water at the same time. In terms of, it's hard to answer the first question, but I will talk about the corner. So the hard part is that Lake Michigan, you'd think it's a lake. Like, it's okay. If there's wind, it's choppy. If not, like, it's not it's not something that is as controlled as you'd think it would be because of how big it is. So it can be super unpredictable. One of the things too is, like, we've had days where it's 72 the day before, and then the lake can flip depending on currents and wind and things. And what that means is the cold water at the bottom comes to the surface, and so suddenly you had 72 water, which is maybe not so bad in a wetsuit. You're thinking about taking it off, and then all of a sudden the water is 60 degrees, and you don't want to take off your wetsuit. So um, my advice for anyone considering this swim or doing this swim is really to prepare for everything. So get some cold water in, get some warmer water in. You have your pools and other things, but be in open water, be in not nice water. So choppy, confused, wavy, all of the above, raining if you can, who knows. So sometimes the front part of the swim is nice and calm and the current's behind you. Sometimes it's not so calm and the current's behind you still. So, like, you're moving faster than you think you are, but it's like harder swimming because there's waves and chop and things. Um, Sometimes that roughness is on the other side. So this past year, the beginning, I believe, ended up being pretty calm, and then once you rounded that corner, it got pretty gnarly with the waves and what you were experiencing. We had a lot of more novice kayakers come to help, and they were not as prepared for the types of waves. I mean, understandably so, that they were seeing in those kayaks. So um, it's good on the Jersey Shore or things. There are ways to practice in those waves depending on how close you are to that. The one consistent thing, I think, is that corner. um, it's never particularly nice. So the island swim is mostly in Lake Huron based on where it is on the side of the bridge, but because Lake Michigan and Lake Huron are actually like one body of water, but they separate them into two lakes. And so that corner is where different currents are usually coming together. And so because it's these competing currents, that's what's going to cause all this water that's just not very nice. On a nicer day, you're getting a little, it's always kind of washing machine like and how the water's moving because it's those competing currents. But, you know, as you flow through the water, it's maybe not so bad on a nice day, and then it can get pretty gross on a bad day. It doesn't last for too long. So like that's always the biggest thing, is just expecting it to be not great and then knowing that you'll get around the corner. um, and just going stroke at a time. What I always tell myself when the water gets rough is just to try and not fight it as much as you can. So like letting the water kind of take you where it needs to go, and just continuing to do one arm in front of the other, I guess, one stroke at a time. Yeah.
Cool. So talk to us about how does one prepare for a race like this? Is it just building up the miles of, like 1,000 miles a week? I mean, 1,000 miles, 1,000 yards a week, 1,000 miles.
1,000 miles. That would be a lot. You'd be in the pool the whole week, I think. Yeah, so a lot of it is about like starting with whatever base you have. So whether that's like base from doing triathlon training or base from just swimming on a master's team or by yourself. And then yeah, slowly increasing that mileage over the week. If you're doing like triathlon training kind of stuff, you can maybe keep your weekly ones the same as you normally would, and then on the weekend just trying to increase that distance of that longer swim. We try and suggest to people to try and build up to like 6+ miles for their peak swim. And part of that is less so about how much your body is ready for the swim, and more so like it's a combination of the body and getting your mind prepared for like swimming for that long. Because at a certain point, your body is going to do it. If you've done Ironmans, you maybe know this, right? Or something equivalent, like a hard physical activity, right? Your body will keep going, but it's your mind that convinces yourself sometimes that you need to stop, right? So these are the types of things to try and practice with the longer swims. When you're in the pool, trying to not just do like a 25 or a 50, but try and add some longer kind of sets in there to practice some distance. We do have like a guideline on the swimAroundMac.com website that outlines kind of week by week by a schedule of kind of what you might want to aim for. And it's not too late yet to start that building. So, if you haven't signed up yet and you want to sign up, it's definitely not too late to get to where you need to be for that August 10th swim.
So
And so, yeah.
you're suggesting that you get up to about 6 miles,
Mhm.
Because there are a lot of, things out there that suggest that you should go over.
So, I can't remember if I went over my first year. So it depends. I mean, so for the ultra marathon swims that I am doing now, I don't ever go over the total distance. So at the highest, so you treat it like a marathon, right? Like for a marathon, you never actually run a marathon while you're training, right? So for my ultra marathon swims, the longest distance that I usually do is slightly over half at one time in one session. And so I try and plan in some of those throughout my time as I'm prepping. But just like I think a lot of training plans for running marathons have you peak at maybe 20 miles and not go the whole 26. So I think that's where, the 6+ comes in. If you can get to 8, cool. But I think if you can get to 6 or just over 6, I think especially because you're working in other swims that same week, right? So let's say you do a swim like Tuesday, Thursday, and then Saturday you do 6+ or something, right? Over the course of the week, you're doing more than the 8 miles. And so your shoulders and usually it's mainly your shoulders that feel that impact, but your body kind of understands that physical component of it. And then, you know, if you do that continuous 6+ miles, um, you know, you'll get what you need. Um, Sometimes I do a lot of my training in the pool, but I would suggest that as best you can, I know everybody doesn't have always access to open water, but if you can try and get some open water experience, and especially on those not great days, so you know, like mentally how to handle and navigate the rougher waters. So even if it's not a longer swim, even if you go out and just do like a 500 just to kind of experience that water, you know, the longer you can stay in, the better. But yeah, I don't think personally, I don't think that you need to go over the 8 miles to be able to be successful in the event.
What strategies would you use to stay focused and maintain your energy during this long swim?
During the swim, oh, so this, I feel like this relates to a question people ask me all the time when they say, "What do you think about when you do these swims?" And I don't have a good answer. I like sing songs to myself. Um, I don't know. I feel like taking in the sights, um, I try and go like a mile at a time, like people feed at like a mile at a time. So just kind of looking, I know some triathletes are like, I just got to get to the next buoy, right? So keeping your mind just kind of focused on the little chunks at a time. And then, you know, if you want Mars bar or scratch or whatever, that's actually just what got flagged for me at the airport. They pulled over my scratch and had to swab it. That's the first time that's ever happened. Um, I was like, I promise it's not drugs. Um, so, but like taking it a step at a time, right? And just enjoying it, right? But especially if you're worried about the total distance, like maybe you have a buddy at the start that you think is going to be the same pace as you, and you try and stay together and you motivate each other as you go. I know a lot of people who do this event with their friends and they try and swim together and just have a good time. Um, but yeah, outside of that, I think like, you know, taking it a mile at a time, trying to focus on just getting to that next feeding how you want and how you practice. I would suggest practicing that a lot. And that's where like the 6+ mile training swims come in, because you know you can always remind yourself to like rely on that training that you have.
Okay. While I'm digging up some more questions, if anybody wants to ask a question.
Yeah, actually, I had a question. When you're talking about the conditions, you know, swimming around the island, especially some of the rough water and the currents, you know, it's funny because when you think of freshwater swimming, you know, unless you're in a river, you don't think of too much of waves and especially not currents, but, you know, the Great Lakes are not your typical freshwater bodies. And I'm wondering if you know, training in bays or ocean swimming would be, you know, a good subset or a good preparation for a swim like that.
Oh, absolutely. I think, you know, your local smaller lakes are going to be something, right? Everybody knows that when there's wind or whatever, there's a little bit of chop. Your arms maybe move differently, you'll get sore differently, and that'll like help build kind of that strength and understanding of open water, which is definitely different than pool water. But yeah, if you have access to oceans and wave-like bodies of water, I think that's a beautiful way to prepare, because I think exactly like you said, the water in Lake Michigan can, or Lake Huron can very much more mimic ocean water and waves at times than one would realize when it's freshwater.
So what are the kind of the size of the swells or waves that you're looking at?
Oh, John, do you remember? You're my data person.
Uh, First off, I wouldn't really call them swells because it's mainly just the choppy water. That's the
Right,
problem. I guess swells would be like 2 to 3 footers,
right.
but it's just that inconsistency that's really the problem.
And is it coming from different directions or is it all in one direction?
I mean, obviously it's going to go with whatever the wind is that day. Sometimes the current will start out different from where the wind is based on, you know, what happened overnight or where the current was the previous days. Um, but um, the, yeah, it's if we have like a west wind kind of day, which is, you know, typical, you're going to be dealing with probably some, 2 to 3 foot waves that aren't necessarily as choppy as when
Mhm.
you're around that corner. But then when you're around that corner, you're not going to have anything really, because it's all going to be blocked by the island. So,
Okay.
so typically you're going to get 2 kinds of swims.
Mhm.
If you do the entire, 8.2 miles, you're going to have one rather calm and then one probably choppy.
Cool.
Mhm. Yeah, but I think the choppiness kind of takes another level that could be mimicked by the ocean swimming, like that you're not going to get like the height of the chop as much in like local lakes, which is why ocean could be good if you have access to it.
And where is that? At what point is this in the swim? Is that 2 or 3 miles? Did you say?
The corner part,
Yeah.
the corner is about halfway, isn't it? 4,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's right around 4 miles. Yep.
Okay. Just
So a lot
just at the point where you might want to quit.
Right. No,
There is an aid station after it.
Uh,
Uh,
and
and
one right before
so
it. Yep.
and right before it, so you can kind of like get out, feed, get your wits about you, maybe get a crew and go around the corner and then hop out, like take a deep breath again. And that's the other thing that's kind of nice about it not being a race. Like, who cares? Like get out, sit there for a second, get your head back in the game and get back in and get ready to tackle it. And so yeah.
How long do you give, uh, before you cut this off?
So we're making some changes this year because we haven't in the past had some cutoffs. And because, people can get out and sit for a while, it's been hard to like keep track of people and whether or not they're done or not done, which like from a safety standpoint is hard, right? And so we want to make sure that everybody's still able to be safe and complete the swim in a safe and controlled way as best we can. So, John, what are the new rules that we're going to have we thought
I
about
mean,
this yet?
we've talked so much about it being like an 8-hour cutoff. But I think the biggest thing for us this year is going to be um, gauging where everybody's at by like noon, right? So if we start at 7:30, 8 o'clock, we want to make sure everyone is to that halfway point by noon. And what's nice about the island is we do have that path going around there, so we can tell people when they get to the aid stations or the relay exchange stations, like, hey, you might want to hop out and like walk a mile and then hop back in the water. Now it's probably only gonna happen with like 5 to 10% of the people. It happened last year. We had quite a few people that hopped out at British Landing, which is that first aid station at mile 3, and they walked around that corner and then hopped back in. So it's really weather dependent. You could be swimming with the current for that first 4 miles, and you might be hauling, and then hit that corner and you're going against the current. And then we'd have to, kind of keep an eye on the time, and if we can get you to the finish line by 4 o'clock is really the goal.
And I'd say that, like, I don't know, at least 90% of the people usually finish by that time. It's usually when people get out and sit for a bit and then need to get back in, and the water's not being nice and friendly, right? So, like John was saying, it's like all of these things coming together, but we try and because it's not a race and because we want people to be able to achieve that like cool feeling of being able to swim 8 miles and be with the community, um, we try our best to let people swim as they need to swim, and get to that finish line without intervening if we can.
And we've never, I think there's one guy that I've had to intervene with one time, and he was very compliant. Anybody else that's gotten out and had to walk, they've done it on their own accord. So it's just so weather dependent. That first year we had it, it was just amazing. Like, it was
Yeah,
so
the currents,
calm,
yeah.
sunny, like the water was 72 degrees. It was great. So, and then each year after, there's always been just, one part of the island that's a little trickier than the other.
It'll be rough this year because I'm doing it.
No, oh, it's your fault this year. Okay. As long as it's not mine, that's fine.
But that's why I think people come back too, because it can present a new type of challenge every year, which is kind of fun.
I mean, you do have a really good community that you've built. It seems like people do come back every year. And I actually learned of this through Jackie. Jackie lives in Michigan. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Jackie, while you're writing, but yeah, she was, she had told me about the swim, and it just seems like a lot of people talk about it, and it's gotten such, notoriety at this point.
Yeah, I've never even actually done it. I was registered for, it must have been the first year that it was actually supposed to happen, and then I couldn't make it. So now I'm disappointed to hear that I missed out on the best weather year. But
Don't do it this year. No, I'm kidding.
yeah, and honestly, I don't think I could do the whole distance. I think, the sound of doing maybe the first 4 miles is appealing, but I just don't have the shoulders for, much over 3 miles. So, 4 miles with current maybe. But I can't do it this year anyway. August is a terrible time of year for us race wise. There's so many events happening. But yeah, anybody I know who's done the event loved it. And a lot of people have gone back multiple times.
Um, so talk to us about like somebody who's new to swimming. How could they overcome the fear of open water and potentially do this at one point?
Oh, I think that's a hard question because I think it depends on what their fear is about the open water, right? So like, is it just putting your face into water in general? Like, where are you starting on the spectrum, right? But I know, so one of my friends is starting to learn how to swim as an adult. And one of the things that's been really powerful for her, well, so first of all, she decided to do it on her own, right? She wanted to learn how to swim and sign up for something because she wanted to. And I think that that's really changed her ability to like keep plugging away at it and learn. But something that's been really helpful for her is to go get swim lessons, to try and work with a coach or someone at the local Y or something like that who can help like kind of give you some direction on the initial components of the stroke, and in a controlled environment where you're in a pool and building up that comfort in a pool, whether it be the shallow end, even like just the shallow end, getting yourself used to that kind of environment. If you know how to swim and you're like, pools are great, but open water is gross, or I'm scared of it, or like, what about the fish? Can they bite me or something? I don't know. Aren't you worried about what lives in there? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it, well, I don't know, it's hard. I would just say exposure, right? Trying to go with friends, take it a step at a time, right? So try and find local groups or friends that you know of, who go open water swimming. And even if you just stand at the edge for a bit, or like walk in and just wade in there, and stand, don't even swim yet. Maybe then try and just, so with like cold water acclimation, right? You like are in a cold shower for 10 seconds and then you work your way up to 5 minutes or whatever. And then you're in a pool. I don't know. So kind of doing something like that, where it's like just being in it and then increasing that time and then work your way to swimming. Cause I think, that's where our head gets in the way sometimes. And, having friends and a group around you kind of helps calm those thoughts and gets you that exposure so that you know what to expect, when you see things, or we are freshwater, so you don't have to worry about as many things as some of the ocean water swims, maybe. But yeah, I think just trying to get exposure. The other thing too is there's no need to swim freestyle. So if you're like, I'm queen of breaststroke, I could never imagine doing breaststroke for 8 miles, but like there are people that do it. There are
Yep.
people that do it. And so like if that's your jam and you need to do that to, help you swim in the open water, then that works too.
And I think I'd add to that a little bit with the island swim and even for training, like the shallow water around the island is great for you know, early swimmers, beginner swimmers, maybe not so much the conditions of the water any given day, but getting in that water and it's just clear, it's shallow. There's one spot in the entire event where it's deeper than you could stand. So it's not intimidating from that aspect. And then just for us in Michigan, we train a lot along the shore, and there's really sandbars that we kind of swim along where it looks like we're out really far, but we'll stop swimming and we can pop right up, and people from the shore will be like, "Whoa, it's like 3 feet deep out there." So for the training aspect, especially if you're in Michigan, the Great Lakes are an awesome place to train. I don't know, maybe not so much in New York, but if you have shallow water, it's a great spot to introduce yourself to open water swimming.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Thank you with that.
Yeah, the other thing I want to just add to that too is that if you're unsure, so Jackie mentioned, right, like, well, I could maybe only do 4 miles or something like that. We do have a relay option that is super flexible. So if you're like, I'm not ready for 8 miles yet, but I want to do some challenge, maybe you sign up with a buddy and you do 4 and 4, or maybe you alternate like every 2 miles or something. Like there's tons of flexibility in how you exchange with relay numbers. We also don't put a cap on number of relay members. I mean, I think usually it's like 6 at the most, I think we've had. And like any more than that maybe doesn't make sense too much. But like, who cares? If you want to swim like 50 yards and have like 20 people on your relay, like whatever. So like having that relay option to try it one time can also like make it less intimidating, especially with the shallow water and being able to stand if you need to.
I love the way you talk about this event, that it's like so low key, and oh, you could do whatever you want, and it's only 8 miles, kind of thing. What you were saying, Maggie, though, before, with with people getting into the open water where it's like all in your head, like if you could swim a mile, you could swim 2 miles, I mean, really,
Yeah.
it's all up here.
Yeah.
That's how
So-
Hillary gets people going from a 5K run to a marathon, Oh,
love
yeah,
that.
it's no problem.
No problem.
It's just
But
a
it's
little
true. I
fun.
mean, you can.
Brian, do you have any questions?
Too many, but what about kayak supports? Are swimmers allowed their own personal kayaker?
So
Can you hear me?
the short answer is yes. You can have your own personal kayaker. So wetsuits are required unless you have a person keeping track of you, whether that be in a kayak or on land. We added that feature this year that someone could like be your personal support, but from land on the path, because you can see the water from the path in 90% of not or 90+% of the way. And so yes is the answer. The one thing that we just ask is that your kayaker also be trained and ready to handle the conditions that are present. So if they practice or have had a lot of experience being a part of open water kayaking, then that's really important for us as possible, right? We're not going to like test your experience, but it just for the safety of you and the kayaker, we've found that to be the most helpful is when kayakers have that experience. But yes. And we do have kayak rental places that we're contracted with to help provide kayaks to people so that they don't have to get them there. But then you can also bring your own kayak and the ferry can take it across the island as well.
If you stay on the island, how do you register for the event? I mean, can you get like a packet pick? I mean, I guess I could ask you offline about this, but can you get a packet pickup
So
before the event?
So usually we do packet pickups on Friday night and Saturday. Or Friday afternoon and Saturday. So that usually that allows people to be able to pick up their packet on Friday if then they're going to stay on the island for the whole weekend, or Saturday before they head to the island. We try and accommodate, you have to go through the mainland to get to the island. And so uh, we have two packet pickup times that, like, depending on when you're arriving, should allow you to do that and then get to the island if that's where you're staying. Now, if none of those end up working, you just let us know. But it's easier for us and with all the supplies and things to have it just at those. But we try and it's worked out pretty well, with no issues to have it on the mainland at the women's club to then pick up on your way if you're staying on the island.
Talk to us a little bit about the charity that you're that you're donating to for this event.
John, do you want to take this one? I think you know more of the details.
Yeah. So the charity is the Mackinac Women's Club. And they are a group of women that started this club in the, I'm gonna screw this up, but it's like the 1910s or the 1920s. And they support a lot of just local charities. They use some of our funds each year to give like a scholarship to the local high school. They support a historical society, just a lot of stuff in Mackinac City, in the Mackinac area. It is what they support, and they meet once a month, and they kind of do it's kind of like a book club, right? They they get together once a month, together as a community, and then they talk about the things they want to support. And it's just a great group of ladies that we kind of ran into the first year of this, that have been very supportive of us and supportive of the swim community. And we just wanted to support them in kind.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions?
Yeah, hi, I have a question. So just a couple of things. Last year was my first year doing it. And I was really thrilled to see this year they moved it up a week. Because, last year when I got up there, I noticed the trees were already changing, and I'm thinking, oh boy, this is not, I was watching the forecast and it was saying, 10, 11 mile an hour. Okay, and I got to that first, or the British landing, I think it was. And I know they were saying after the event, it was like 2 to 4 footers. Those were 4 to 6 footers. Those were not. I did the big shoulders in Chicago the fall before. Those were 3 footers.
Yeah.
And I get my arms over most of those waves. And I mean, I think I made it about a mile in the heavy stuff. And my kayaker was seasick by then.
Yep.
He was. So I think this year, number one, I'm skipping the kayaker.
Yep.
But and the other thing I'm going to do is, last year I came on Friday, checked in, stayed the night in Mackinac City, and then did that boat the next day. And that was, I'm not going to do that again. I'm going to come Saturday and stay right on the island. Is there a check-in available Saturday, like afternoon on the island?
Yes, not on the island, but there is a check-in Saturday on the mainland. So if you come through the mainland on Saturday, you should be able to pick up your packet and then go onto the island.
Okay, do you know what time roughly that? I'm going to be coming from central Wisconsin, so it takes me 6 hours to get there. So I just don't want to miss it.
It's usually in like the middle of the day, early afternoon to later afternoon.
Yeah, we need to get it's kind of coincides with when we need to get the kayaks over there. And we need to get all those over there before like that evening rush on the ferries, which is like 4 or 5 o'clock. So we try to coincide the packet pickup like middle of the day. So it'd probably be end up being like 1 to 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
haven't set it up officially. We haven't decided officially yet, but once the packet comes out for the event, it'll all be outlined in there for you to plan.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'll just plan on leaving real early so I can kind of get there, let's say by 1, you know. Okay. All right.
Any other
Um,
questions?
No, I think I'm good.
Yeah, I had a question. So you mentioned fish before, saying, we were talking about people being afraid of open water. What kind of wildlife do you run into out there?
I never saw any.
Honestly, yeah, honestly, I don't think I've ever run into anything in the water. I
There
don't
are
like
some very
maybe
beautiful
some
rocks.
fish. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
some rocks, but they
I
don't
was
usually move.
I was looking for smallmouth because I'm a fisherman, and I never saw anything.
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, I maybe see a few like tiny fish far away, but like maybe it's really not much. I wonder if because it's so rocky and that they kind of go other places. I don't
I
know.
think it's because it's so clear,
Yeah.
and the fish are
Oh,
intimidated by being, they know they've got predators above.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, so we don't really run into anything.
I-
Brian, we can't hear you.
oh,
No, I can hear you, the other Brian, sorry.
I was just saying that hang on a second. I was just saying, as far as the fish are concerned, we're big, splashy monsters. They're staying far away from us.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even say like seaweed creeps me out. Both John and I agree on that front. And there's not even any of that really. Like it's rocky.
There's-
That's about what you see.
Yeah,
There's
on
some
the
big-
east side of the island, there's some really cool like geology, I'll say. I'm kind of skittish when I'm swimming in such clear open water because I'm always thinking of the things I don't want to see. So anything that like there's one big sheephead fish that popped one time when I was swimming out there, and it scared the bejesus out of me. And it's just a freshwater fish, but you're not used to seeing the wildlife. There is some, but it's mainly just enjoying that clarity of the water and like I said, the geologic kind of formations on that east side.
We're used to wildlife in New York. We get a lot of that.
Oh, I grew up in New Jersey. Yeah, I had a lot, so I knew, but yeah.
So I have a quick question, maybe. When you get into the real rough water, what I was wanting to do was I thought, well, maybe I just start diving under these things and dolphin kick for, 5 or 10 yards and come up and do that kind of stuff. But, with the wetsuit on, that's not really practical. You're too buoyant.
Well, I think the buoy is the bigger problem versus the wetsuits.
No, I forgot about that. There you go.
Yeah.
I wasn't even making it deep enough to. What do you guys do? I mean, do you just breaststroke it? What do you?
So, I mean, going through rough water just always kind of sucks. Like there's no, I feel like there's no good way to do it. Like you will get hit by chop and like you might swallow some water. Like I feel like these are just things that I remind myself are true when you're swimming in rough water. One of the things that I try and do is not fight the water as best I can. So if I can find some sort of rhythm in the chop, so maybe my stroke rate is like way down or not what it usually is, but trying to change my stroke rate or how much I'm kicking or not kicking to try and see if I can match any and sometimes in choppy water there's no pattern, and so that fails.
Yeah.
But trying to find like some flow to time my stroke so that my stroke misses, the chop's going to hit me, but my stroke misses the chop. So I call I try and be one with the water as much as possible, right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to fight it. And that's hard. And that's where the experience comes in. That's where like trying some things out in different types of rough water during your training, if you can, is super helpful because you know how to modify as needed, right? And
Well,
I get that. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
so, I mean, I'm wondering if one of the mistakes I made last year was I stay, are you maybe I stayed too close to shore. Maybe, I'm thinking the bathtub effect.
Yeah.
See, it's not the swells. You can swim the troughs of those. But last year, it didn't matter. I mean, there was no such thing as a swell. It was a total bathtub of really big waves every direction. I mean, my right arm was getting it, my left, it didn't matter. And afterwards, I thought, I wonder if I had gone a little farther out.
And
The waves would have been as bad, but
to
maybe not as
add to that a little
bathtub.
bit, we did, we've been trying to kind of make note of that with our volunteers and our boaters, like, hey, on the east side of the island where it is relatively shallow, going like 200-300 yards out, like, hey, we're gonna let these swimmers get out a little bit deeper. Just because of that very thing. Like, it's not common to have that like east or northeast wind where that side of the island is the choppy side, right? Where you can't find those troughs to swim through and do what Maggie was saying. So
Right.
last year, I think you just got unlucky with that spot, really.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
And going
I would
for,
suggest going out deeper.
I mean, I kept that first 3 miles, I thought, oh, this is a dream, man. Am I I was so psyched. I didn't even feel remotely tired. Everything was a fit. And then I hit that point and man, it was okay here. And they said it was coming. I knew it was coming,
Yeah.
but I didn't know it was going to be like that,
Good to be prepared, yeah.
Yeah, but that's okay. That's kind of what I was wondering, is that I just felt like maybe I just stayed too shallow and made it much worse, So, okay.
Do you guys wear fins?
You can.
Do a lot
Yeah.
of people? It would seem like that might help get through some of that more challenging stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
I had the short fins on,
Okay,
the competition pool fins.
yep,
And, again, yeah, it would have helped if I could dive under the water.
yeah, right,
But you
okay.
can't dive under the water. So, you're kind of kicking a lot of air with them.
Right,
I think I kick more water without them. Like, for example, in Chicago, Big Shoulders, that they don't allow fins or paddles in that
Okay.
one. And even in the bigger waves there, without the fins, you can stay lower in the water with your feet.
okay, gotcha.
All right, we have a question from Brian Fallon.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a question so much as a comment, that just be careful with the use of fins on endurance swims because the chance of cramping, leg cramps, goes up exponentially.
Yeah, so if you use fins, for the event, you definitely want to do 2 things. You want to practice with them for the longer distances, so your body, just like Brian mentioned, your body's used to it, so maybe you hold off cramping, know how to fuel to appropriately accommodate that. But also you have a place to store them or tie them to your buoy if you need to take them off. Or like know where the stations are where you can drop them on shore or something like that. So have a backup plan. To like slightly answer that question related to fins a little bit more, we have a decent number of people that use fins, but the majority of people I would say do not. But if fins would make it easier for you to accomplish the goal of getting around, and that's what, like, do it. Like, that's what, we encourage you to use whatever tools you need to help.
Yeah, for me, I just waited till game day to make that decision. I had them with me, and the minute they said, when you go around that point, it's going to be a whole new world, that's when I chose to use them, or I put them on at that point. If we get favorable weather conditions, obviously you'd be better, be a lot easier to not have them.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, Hillary already told us that she's coming, so don't be planning on good weather.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not going to be good weather
Yeah.
because that's my MO.
This time I would be
Follows
happy
me.
if just the first half of it, that whole east side, like you say, if we can
But a
get
lot
through
of the
that, and
times, yeah, that's not always the nice side. So that's the challenge, right? It'll show us what it wants to the morning of the event.
so which of you found you were better off with, like the first side of the island being rough, but the backside being calm, or vice versa?
Oh, I think it's hard it depends on so many factors. So, like, the first time John and I swam it before it was an actual event, the first side was choppy and the other side was calm. But on the first side, we were going with the current, and on the back side, we were going against the current. So even though it was nicer water, we were swimming against the current. So, like, there are just so many factors that it's hard to decide which one is better or not.
Yeah.
I think they just all have pros and cons, or different kind of things that are good and bad about them, which is kind of what makes the swim interesting and fun, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Is like that's why we love open water swimming, right? We like that challenge. We love going out there when it's pancake flat and you can just swim miles and miles without having to do flip turns. But at the same token, like you like to deal with those waves, and you like to have a little something thrown at you. It's a challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. It's just last year was disappointing for me because you do put in a lot of training for this.
Yeah.
And what we ended up with last year, it was like, yeah, I was pretty upset when I got out, but 10 minutes later I was fine. I said, well, I'll try it next year. It is what it is. That's
Yep.
what, it's part of the gamble with open water.
Yep.
In the Great Lakes, especially.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
We have time for one quick question. Anybody?
Yeah, where are you from in New Jersey?
Montclair.
Oh,
Oh,
I grew up very close in North Caldwell. So
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
North
we
Jersey.
swam in North Caldwell all the time. Yeah.
mhm.
Yeah, we swam high school swim meets at the Caldwell pool plenty. I don't love that pool. They use too much chlorine, or they did at least.
anyway, thank you both very much for being on this webinar, this Lunch and Learn webinar with We Are Endurance, and we appreciate your time. This was great, and I'm psyched. I think it's going to be a great event.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. And
All
if
right.
the website has a lot of information, there's a Facebook page to ask any and all questions of people that have done it before. So if you're still thinking about it and have some questions, feel free to reach out in any of those ways. So
Terrific. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bye.
bye.